Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ICB board meeting today. We are doing the advising to the Utah Interpreter Program. We would like to get comments from non-board members, and we'd like to hold those to a specific time, and then we'll open it up to the non-board members. So we'll start with our agenda items right now. And we'll go ahead and open the floor for our guests after we're done with our agenda. Also, to let you all know, this is a recorded meeting and that would be available to the public. And we can put the link to our website on our website to that. I believe they stay up for around 3 to 4 months so that you can review the recording at any time if you'd like to. So we're looking for any announcements from the community or any announcements from the board right now. Is there anything exciting that you guys as members of the board want to share with the ICB? Do you guys have any news for us? Seems kind of quiet. All right, if there is none, let's go ahead and start with our agenda. The number one thing is from the certification test and training coordinator, and also the Saturday testing pilot. Also a new Raider training. Let's go ahead and turn time over now to Jess to explain these things for us. So here's an update from UIP for you all. First off, I think most of you guys knew this, but we've been planning to hire a new specific job, a job before. And it's the certification testing trainer coordinator. Jason, if there's a green box on Jess, that means it's not recording her. So you may have to start spotlighting people. So we might have to have Jess be spotlighted while we're doing this, so it's recorded. Jason, did you see what I was saying? Jason? Oh, you know what? Jess was just saying Jason doesn't look like he's on the list right now. Oh, no, I can see him. Actually, no, there he is. He's right there. Jason? I'm not sure if you saw us, Jason, or not, but maybe we can text Jason. So we're just trying to resolve this technical problem here. So now, okay, looks like Jessica's spotlighted right now. So now let's spotlight Jess, if we can. All right, everybody. UIP has 3 updates. So, and the first one of them is a new job that we've opened up at the center. UIP has never had this job in the past. It's the certification testing and training coordinator. We have recruited people and we did our interviewing. And in doing that, we have made an offer now to an individual. The person has accepted the job. So we're very excited about that because that will let us do a lot more with on our test and also what it is we need to do and where we can improve that. So I can't let you guys know who that is yet. We have to go through the HR and the hiring process first, but their expected start date is September 20th. So I will have an announcement around that time for you all. Congratulations, Jess is saying. or Jessica saying, yeah, that was great news for us. Jess is indicating that was great news for us. The next update is our Saturday testing pilot. A few months ago, there was an individual who contacted UIP and said they lived really far away. And would there be any way that they could set up a test for that individual on a Saturday? And in talking with my team, we decided we feel like, yes, we could do that for that individual on that Saturday. So what we did is we opened up testing on that day. And what happened was other people would get that test before that individual could get it. So we'd contact that person and say, hey, we're going to open up another slot on Saturday because somebody else took the one we opened for you. So we opened up a second slot to wait for that individual to get it, and another individual took it immediately. So the third time we called them and we said, hey, we're going to open this right this second. You need to open your computer, be ready to go. And we did get them to grab a spot on a Saturday. But I think that showed that the community does have a need for testing on a Saturday. And so we decided we would do a pilot for that and do some testings on Saturday. Thus far, it's gone really well. It's really popular. The community has been very thankful for that because they don't have to take off work during the work week. Or if it's a far drive, they can come on Friday and get a good night's rest and then take the test on a Saturday. So we are going to probably continue doing at least once a month, offering testing on a Saturday. A few months ago, we started introducing new raters to our team. So our pool had shrunk a little bit and we needed to expand that again. So we hired a few new raters. Their training is going well. And we have some raters who will go to each team. So that is where we're at right there. And they should start ratings here pretty soon. We're still in the training phase for them just to double check and make sure that they're on par with the other raters, but they should be starting pretty soon and we're excited about that. That's about all of the updates we have from UIP today. Do you guys have any questions for me on that stuff? Looks like David. Let's spotlight David for that. Hello, David saying, hi, everybody. As far as Saturday testing goes, maybe I hadn't been paying attention, but I do think in the past, UIP did it on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That was something they did a long time ago. But when did that stop and change? I don't really know. That was kind of new to me that there wasn't Saturdays this whole time. I thought we'd always had Saturdays. That's not an important thing we need to discuss, but I thought that they had always had Saturday testing. Maybe that was when Mitch was there. So is this recently changed or are we going back to Saturdays? And Jess is saying that's a good question. So in my memory, it was the same as yours when I had worked here a long time ago. But we did offer the test on Saturdays. It was Fridays and Saturdays. Sometimes even we've done it on a Sunday in the past. It would be kind of a full weekend that we would do testing. So when that change happened, I'm not exactly sure. But when I had started, it was only Monday through Thursday. And so now we've added Saturday back in. So that's good, David saying, thank you, appreciate that. Looks like Jessica's got a question for you. So we'll go ahead and get David off and then we'll have Jessica on. With the new trainer for the raters, does that mean that would there be any delays with testing results and getting their results back? Jessica, that's a great question. And the answer is no. We still have enough raters right now doing our regular rating, getting those in on time. I just wanted to make sure that we had, as you know, how people's lives are, their lives change, their priorities might change. I wanted to make sure that we had a pool of available people. I didn't want us to get into a situation where those results would be delayed. And Jessica's saying, that's great, Jess. So I think that is, again, a way to prevent that from happening. So do you have any ideas, or what is your plan to prevent that from happening? The plan is that every year we will get a couple of new raters. And then as people during the year drop off, or if they have somebody who needs to take a break for 3 months, we'll always have backups ready to do those ratings. All right, thank you, Jess. I appreciate that. And if any of you guys know individuals who might be interested, or you think they would be good for the rating team, please let me know. Jessica's saying maybe we can explain to our guests what it is you're looking for as far as raters go. Okay, Jessica, I can do that. When I look at our current pool of raters, I would say there's nothing that is common about all of them, except for maybe the value of American Sign Language, the values for interpreting, and the willingness to learn. We've got hearing interpreter raters, we've got deaf community interpreter raters, and we've got UCDI for the deaf test. So we have several raters within each of those teams as well. Our process for this is just to make sure that there's no fraud, no nepotism, no anything like that, right? We need to make sure we have individuals who are highly trained to do these ratings. So we need an individual who's willing to learn, who wants to learn. And the training process probably takes, I would say, 5 to 6 months, really, to become proficient at ratings. And so the training process is in depth. It's kind of an in-depth skills interview of that individual, if you will. And if at the end we feel like they're a good rater, then we'll go ahead and pull them onto a team. So anybody who's willing to look at people's videos with a fresh perspective for each individual who takes the test, who can focus for that time while they're doing that rating and assess the individual's ability to use American Sign Language, or if they're voicing, their ability to utilize receptive skills and how they voice those things. We want to make sure that all of that's done in a confidential environment. So names and results or anything like that can't be shared. The content of the test can't be shared. It has to be completely confidential. So an individual who can meet that type of a need. But again, there's no like requirement. For example, do you need a master's degree? No, you don't. You need to be able to assess interpreting and honestly give your opinion about that individual's skill and readiness. Not something like, oh gosh, I can see that they're trying hard. I really feel bad for them. Let's just pass them. Or I've actually seen this person in the community and that video is not fair to what I've really seen them do in real life. I've seen them do better. We can't really do that. You need to look at just that video, that one sample of their work. All right. Thank you, Jess, for expanding on that.
It's a good time to switch interpreters.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and switch interpreters. You can just go ahead and leave your camera off, Robin, and start voicing.
Okay. It looks like Stephen Ehrlich has a question. Okay. I think it's wonderful opportunity for interpreters to come on Saturdays. So I have two questions. The first being, what hours are limited to the schedule? Is it an all-day thing or 9 to noon? And then my second question being, if Saturdays are so popular, would the center then be increasing and expanding the time because people keep booking the times on the schedules the minute they appear? Good question. Good question, Stephen. First, to answer your first question, the time slots on Saturdays, we offer 3. The knowledge exam, 3 people can come in and take the knowledge exam. We offer 1 performance exam. So in total, there are 4 slots, 3 knowledge and 1 performance. And if it becomes so overwhelmingly popular, we can provide more on a Saturday. Well, probably not without more staff, because currently during the week we have Saturday staff who is going to work on Saturday. They have to be off on that week, the prior days, because so there has to be balance. If we have more staff, we could hire another person and they would be specifically for that Saturday, but that's not the situation and that's not likely to happen. I wish, but you know. Yes, go ahead, Stephen. So I got it clear. So there's 4 different exams being held on Saturdays. But what I mean is what time slots are available. So if the raters are working, is it 9 to noon or is it an all day? You know, what are the raters doing? And secondly, I didn't mean, you know, every Saturday. I just meant as we go along, you know, it just depends on the staff availability and so on and so forth. But maybe we could try to make it with management, make more time if indeed the time slots are going so fast. So, you know, we'd start the exams about 10 and the staff will come in about 9:30 to make sure everything is set up. And the knowledge exams are given in the morning at 10 a.m. Then the performance exams tend to happen at 1 o'clock. The performance exam can be up to 3 hours long. So that starting at 1 o'clock, finishing approximately 4 o'clock, and then the staff have to then close down all the equipment and things. So basically it's an all day thing. Okay, that's clear. But my second question regarding Saturdays, yes, we will continue 1 Saturday per month. If it becomes a heavily requested time, we can discuss it with staff, but okay, we cannot require staff to come on a regular basis on Saturdays. It's just not doable. We can do what we can, but if staff is not available, you know. Thank you. Thank you. Another question for UIP update. Looking for hands. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jess. Okay, if no other questions regarding that and the board, we will then go ahead with number 2 on the agenda, which is a recommendation to publish lapsed certification and recognize interpreters. Jess, do you want to lead that discussion? Give me 10 seconds, please, for a sip. I just had to water my windpipes. Okay, so I am happy to do a short introduction to that topic. I think at the last board meeting, we talked about it, and we now announce who has passed the tests, woohoo! But we do not announce if somebody has let their certification lapse. The board felt they are supporting the idea to announce that on the website or something, but they had some strong feelings about that. I want it announced. I personally want that, but right now, when I put up that idea to the powers that be, I was nixed. No. So maybe you can write a resolution or a recommendation that the board can then propose. That's your job, right? To advise what should be done, how you feel, and why. There is a precedent. UIP used to announce that information. RID did not announce. They put, if the certification lapsed because of breaking the code of ethics at that time, it being called that, they would announce, they would fill out, the name because they broke the code of ethics. That would be it. So that's the short introduction to that. The board can talk about that and decide if you want to write, and if you do, what should be said. Thank you for that introduction and getting our wheels going. Oh, okay, sorry. I remember this discussion in prior meetings. The community is concerned because they don't know what interpreters are continuing to work without knowledge, but without certification. But those who are certified, UIP broadcasted in the news, hey, newly certified interpreters, congratulate them. But should we say the website, is it worth it to tell people? But it's important that it should be said, because you have a list of members' names who are already certified, but there should be a list maybe of who is not certified, so that maybe the agencies could even look and say, they're lapsed. I don't know. At the same time, we need to know what we should do to announce. We announce new certifications, but those who have a lapse, it shouldn't be hush hush. It should be stated that somewhere, I don't think people want to read it in the news, but I think it should be shown somewhere that the lapse has happened. There's two different ways we can go about it. Any other discussion? Okay, Ben Daniels. I like David's. And how long do we leave the name? Because that list of names, after a certain time, we can just delete the name. If they haven't then renewed, then we can just delete the name. The UIP has a list of interpreters, their names, their phone numbers, what certifications they have, and we can look at their, NIC, professional, novice, SCL, whatever, maybe just put lapsed instead of making a separate chart and also for the agencies. I searched their name in that. If there's nothing there, I know then, okay, they have lapsed and I have not been able to contact them. Okay. Jessica says, I think putting their name and then because we used to know that they were there, UIP already does have a list of in the database, but it doesn't say lapsed. If the name doesn't pop up, they're just not there anymore. Their certification lapse, there's also recognized. Stephen Ehrlich, did you have a question? Okay, I have 3. To answer in order of question. Number 1, suppose the interpreter is here in Utah, they're certified and their certification lapses, but their RID certified, the interpreter is asking for clarified. So the interpreter is very small. Here in Utah, their Utah certification lapses, but they have an RID certification and it's still valid and they can work in other states. That's my first question. What do we do? My understanding is yes, they can work in other states. Jessica's responding. With a national certification, if the state does not require to have a state recognition, then they can interpret there. Utah requires recognition from the state for your RID certification. Is there any more questions regarding that? Jen had a comment. Well, okay, so the RID certified, but at Utah lapse, and you can't work here in Utah. Okay, I got it. So my second question is maybe a few interpreters are, skating through. They don't want to file for UIP recognition, but they have an RID certification. How do you catch them and what is the consequences?
There is no consequence there. What?
Somebody's voice is
dude.
I'm sorry. For us, we are responsible to look at the database for who is currently recognized by the state of Utah. However, not many deaf people are aware of the database. Any comments from other people? So I'm a bit confused. An interpreter moved here from out to Utah. I didn't know if they had certification. They told me that they worked VRS, but I didn't know what VRS company. And I encouraged them to apply for Utah certification. And I talked with, they said, well, with a federal agency, they didn't have to do that because the federal agency. So I was like kind of confused about that. Do you remember what agency that was? Jessica's asking. They just said, I don't know. They didn't tell me what agency. They said VRS. And Jess, can we spotlight Jess? I can't see. There you go. There you go. Okay. Thank you for bringing up that situation, Stephen. There is a difference. That's a different question for what we're discussing. Right now, we're focusing on, should we print the interpreter's name who has lapsed? Those working interpreters that are not certified or recognized, it's a separate issue. If we want to discuss that, we can put it on the agenda for next time. Okay, I can agree to that. But Stephen, I want to add to that then. Could you put my name for a discussion later, please? Just put my name for that discussion later, please. And Jessica says, will do. Jess, while I have you here, I have a question about any legal ramifications from the negative feedback or warnings. We're kind of concerned from the state of Utah or the US about that. So
We can go ahead and switch interpreters now, Robin.
got it.
Yeah, you're good, Jessica. Our lawyer, or our law with interpreting, does require that UIP or DSDHH maintains a list of all the certified and recognized interpreters in the state. That's why we have that list available on our website. So the law requires that we have that list. Now, our interpreter law doesn't say much about publishing names of individuals who are not certified any longer. So out in the community, other laws, I don't really know much about that. I'm not an attorney myself, so I don't know. But I do believe that before we did something like that, if we did want to do that, we would probably have to have our legal team review that for the state. All right, thank you. And I believe Jen had a comment. Let's go ahead and spotlight Jen. Looks like she's been waiting for a minute here. So let's go ahead and go to Jen there. Hello, everybody. I do think it's important. And the reason I say it's important is the individuals who hire people, they know where to look and to find those interpreters' names on the directory. So like people have mentioned, the community doesn't know how to. I don't think it's realistic to expect the community to check and make sure their interpreter is certified every time they use one. And again, to mention this, I don't think we assume that it's always a negative thing. Maybe the interpreter just decided to stop interpreting. They got a different career. Their maintenance was too expensive. So again, it's not like a code of ethics violation every time somebody lapses. Most of the time, it's a personal decision. But the deaf community does see interpreters often. And if they saw them again, they would never assume that that individual wasn't certified anymore. If somebody wants to get back into interpreting, but then does it inappropriately. And again, they're not being, I'm not saying this is negative, but I think the public should have knowledge. So I do think we should publish that somehow, that people are just not recognized to work in our state anymore. I think that's for the deaf community. It's easier for them to find that information. And I do agree there is a time limit, or we should set some types of parameters for disseminating that information. I do also feel like it should be posted somewhere, which is easy for the community to see, and maybe in multiple places. RID's website, their old website, they used to have a homepage, and there was one little area that would announce newly certified and lapsed certified people. And it just said there, they're not allowed to legally work anymore in the state of Utah. That was there. And those names would change every month or so. And I think that's fine. I do feel like in the past, UIP and DSDHH website was a lot more communicative, and so I think DSDHH is not going to go to the interpreting website as much as, or the community is not going to go to the interpreting website as much as DSDHH's website. A lot of the people that I know subscribe to that newsletter from the DSDHH, so that's where they're able to access that information. And again, I'm not trying to punish anybody. I'm just informing the rest of the deaf community. I feel like it's very important that we think of the community's perspective for that information. So it seems like most of us are in agreement. We do need to have some way to have this happen. But I guess the question now is the higher ups are telling UIP that no, they can't do that. So do we want to go ahead and write a recommendation? Let's go ahead and spotlight Jen again. I think Jen had another comment. So I just wanted to clarify with you, Jessica, and I apologize. So to clarify, I do think that they've told UIP no, but I don't think ICB formally requested that. So maybe they would consider it again. So my thought is, first, let's make a proposal with our reasoning for doing it and to see what their response is. But I don't think the ICB's actually made a recommendation for this before. I think it was probably an informal thing that UIP did, but that's my understanding. I guess you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So Jessica's saying, I'm not aware of the history. You probably have a little bit more knowledge of the history than I do. So we will rely on you for that information. So is that meaning that we recommend that UIP writes the letter themselves? No, and Jen's saying, no, I think it should come from the ICB. I believe the ICB should write the proposal. And I think it would be nice if the UAD, if we talk to UAD about it to get their perspective on that, and then wrote that proposal. So maybe assign somebody to write a proposal and the rationale behind that, and maybe getting UAD's support, or if, I don't know if that's appropriate or not. But again, I don't want to assume that we know what the community wants. Let's get their advice. And if you guys feel like that's good, once we've gotten that proposal approved by ICB, let's send it up the DWS chain. So where do we start this? So Jen is saying, I motion that we select someone to write a draft letter for DWS recommending that we post lapsed interpreters. And I'd be happy to work on that if anybody else wants to, but to see what the board thinks, but I'd be happy to work on that. Let's go ahead and go to Stephen Ehrlich real quick. I like that idea, Jen. I think that's a great idea. I wanted to also recommend, I think we should ask attorneys to be involved with that, to write it in maybe some legal language, because I know that DWS has a lot of legal lingo, and they may not like your proposal as much without all of that legal jargon in it. So, and this is Jen saying, I don't know if we want to use lawyers for that. And again, I'm not sure that DWS would expect our proposal letter to be a legal letter. It's more of a proposal and the reasons why we feel like it's important to do this. They could then check the ramifications with their legal team. And if there's a real reason why you couldn't, which I can't imagine why there would be one, they would let them know. But I think their lawyers will review it afterwards. In the beginning, it would cost money, so I don't think that's really in the scope of the ICB board. Our board is to advise, give them ideas of what we think they should do. And I think we have strong rationale right now for this idea. So let's see what their response is. And then we could go into it in depth at a later date. But this is just the preliminary idea. And I would assume the best in the beginning, personally. So if we do want to go ahead and you're willing, Jen, to, let's go ahead and Stephen's got something else as well. Do you think it would be possible to ask DWS's attorneys to give you some resources so you could see how that would work before we typed up the proposal, or what are your ideas on that? So Jen is saying, Stephen, maybe tell me, what is your rationale for that? Or why do you feel like we need to have more legal information before we do our initial request? I'm trying to understand the reasoning you have behind that. So, and then I can answer this question better. We know that DWS has a lot of rules and laws that govern them. So I'm saying maybe save ourselves some work. Thank you for that clarification there, Stephen. And I'm not sure, Jess, if this is correct or not, but I think last meeting we kind of discussed this, and the reason they had said no, they didn't really give you a reason. Is that correct? Or their reasoning for saying no, you didn't know what it was, Jess? Okay. So maybe I am naive, but I'm making an assumption here. I mean, I don't think it's a legal reason for it. It could be a headache to add to the website. It could be, like, for example, maybe they think it's negative. They think it's a negative thing, but it's not a negative thing, you know. So again, I don't know if they had a legal reason for saying no. I would assume it's another reason. But if the ICB advises that, I'm hoping that they would listen to us. We could even call a meeting with them and invite them so we could explain it in depth to them. But to be honest, I think that's, I'm not an attorney either. And so I don't have attorneys I work with. It might be a good idea, but I don't have the resources, and I don't think it's realistic in the beginning. Stephen, what do you think? And Stephen's saying, yes, I agree with that. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I was kind of laughing because I do understand how you feel, Jen. I think we're tired of this fight, right? We a lot of times have to do this fight, and it's frustrating. So I was just trying to, give you a way to get your foot in the door a little bit earlier and easier. And Stephen, I understand your frustration, Jen is saying. Jess, let's go ahead and go to Jess. I would agree with what you guys are saying. The first step would be for the ICB to provide a friendly advice, not jump to an argument yet. I think the friendly advice is best. There's no better way to start an argument than with lawyers. All right, valid point, Jess. Thank you very much. Is there anybody who is in disagreement with the ICB? Jen will go ahead and take on the spearhead that that proposal letter, a rough draft of a proposal letter, and then we can continue discussing this through email, and then we could vote on a final draft through email. That way we wouldn't have to wait for 3 months to send it up the chain. So we do have some actions that we can take. Go ahead, Jess. This is just the rules process and a question, but I do think that Jen made a motion. So do we need to get a second for that? And then do we need to vote on that? So it's not on the printed agenda. So that's why we had avoided do that. I was avoiding a vote because it's not printed out on the agenda. So we can't do that. So we would have to start with a motion and a second and a vote. It would have to be on the agenda. But just the idea to write a rough draft, we don't have to start that. So that's fine. And Jess is saying, hey, I'm fine. I don't really know Robert's Rules of Order that well. So what sounds good. And Jen said for proceedings, if I understand correctly, so the motion must be printed before the next meeting. Is that what needs to happen, or what is it? So it is on the agenda. This discussion's there, but because the emotion or sending the letter to DDoS wasn't on the agenda. Okay, so I would then move that we draft a letter and send a letter with a motion, or the letter and the motion through email. So again, I don't think it would be fair to wait 3 months for this idea. So I'd like to go ahead and the fastest way that I can think of doing that is through emails. And we can vote through emails. We are allowed to do that. So that's an option. But then there would be no public comment, correct? I feel like this is one that should have public comment. We should at least open it up for the public. To see if there's anything that we're missing and if there's a reason we shouldn't do it. So do we see anything in our bylaws that say that we must have public comment? I don't think we have anything in our bylaws that say that. So unfortunately, if we like it, we want to try to open up to the public as much as we can, but it just would depend on time as well. And Jess is saying we can maybe solve both of these issues with one solution. Let's say if we have a person who wants to write this idea up, like Jen wants to do. So like Jen saying she'll write the draft, and then the board could discuss that draft through email, develop a final version of the draft. And then what we can do is the next board meeting in December, we can finalize that and motion it and open it up to any public comment in that meeting. And then decide if there's any motions to change or amend it at all, get rid of the idea, or if it's approved. But we could do all of that with public comment at the meeting in December. Okay, then let's go ahead and do that. That will be the plan. And then we can do most of the work through email, Jess is saying. Most of the work would happen through emails. And then we would still have time for public comment in that meeting. Jen is saying, I do think that would be appropriate for this type of topic. Because again, we don't want something to come up later on. This would show that we gave everybody an opportunity. And if somebody has a complaint with it, it doesn't just throw everything out with the wash, so to speak. Okay, I do believe that we could put it in the bylaws. So if there's a way to get around this issue. So if something comes up during the discussion and we wanted to vote on that, then maybe we could go ahead and vote on that then. We might be able to change the language in our bylaws just a little bit. All right, thank you, Jess, for taking that on. I do appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom on this issue, so thank you. I'm happy to do it, Jen said. Any other comments with this topic? Any other comments or concerns about writing the letter to DWS? Do we have any comments from the board on that? Okay, all right, Jen. Just a procedural question. Once I type up the draft letter, do I send that to you, Jessica, and then you'll disseminate that to the board? Or what would you like us to do? Jess is saying, let's start with, or Jessica saying, let's start with me and Jason and the other vice chair, which is Tom. And then we will look through that and then we can disseminate that to the rest of the board. And Jen saying, sounds good. All right, thank you, Jen. If there are no other questions, let's go ahead and start with our next agenda item. Ben has something on the policy and procedures manual. So let's go ahead and spotlight Ben. Hey, Ben, or hello, everybody. I'm Ben, and I'm the chair for the reviewing the policy and procedures manual, referred to as the PPM. We've had a committee of 5 individuals, and since our last, the 5 of us have met about 4 times to discuss the PPM. I think we've made great headway on it, and I am really proud of what it is we've accomplished in the last couple of months. So thank you all who have been involved in that. I can tell you some of the things we've discussed as far as the PPM. With the EIPA certification, if that lapses, there was a question on what to do. There was a couple loopholes we needed to kind of clean up to make sure that was clear. The academic courses and what counts as a credit, that's still a little vague in the PPM, and we're still working on clarifying that a little better. Out-of-state VRI interpreters, since COVID, that's gone up, and there's a lot more opportunities for VRI work in here in Utah. So people who are working in the state of Utah but live in a different state. Also, there's a lot of Utah interpreters who live in the state and they work in other states. So how are we going to clean that up a little bit? Also, deaf interpreters who are interested in becoming a UCDI, maybe getting a student permit that's equivalent to what the hearing interpreters can get as a student permit, giving them an opportunity to receive some additional training and some experience. We spent a lot of time talking about the grievance process. And that part was at the very end, and it felt like we had gotten sick of talking about it. So we haven't really done a whole lot with the grievance process. Some of the grammatical stuff or some of the formatting and also the glossary, some of the words there are not in the PPM at all. So we've got to remove those from the glossary. Some of the words from the PPM aren't in the glossary, so we've got to add those. But that's kind of the work we've been doing. Our goal is to be done or finalized with this and get it out to the group by the next meeting in December for your review. So that's kind of the goal. Jess, anything? Did I miss anything? No, it sounds good, Ben. Thank you. That was a great job. All right. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that very much. And I'm excited to see those changes in the PPM. Do you feel like you need any other support from the board? Or do you guys are good? And Ben's saying, no, I think our committee is great. We have a diverse experience and diverse backgrounds. So everybody shares a lot. I think we work really well together. So I do think we have some pretty good support. There was one individual who had to lessen their involvement because of their work. In fall, their work started going up, but I still feel like the 4 of us can finish up what it is we have left.
Good time to switch interpreters.
Okay.
So who is the beta reader? The ICB will be the beta reader. Jess will be leading on that effort to write the PPM based on our participation and feedback. The committee oversees it, gave our feedback, and then Jess. Personally, I know it's a little weird, but I would like to see the changes, like a side-by-side. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. We already do have that in the old PPM and the new PPM. And then a third document, which will expound upon any other changes and the reasoning behind our proposed changes, the rationale behind why we did these things. So we have, oh my gosh, Jessica said that's, you saw it all the way through. Thank you. Questions from the board? Concerns? Stephen. Hello, Ben. I want to talk about a little thing that is a little sensitive, and it's hard for me to read the PPM because the deaf blind and it says deaf and visually impaired or hearing loss. Is that verbiage changed? Is that going to be changed to deafblind? Thank you for your feedback, Stephen. I will look thoroughly through that and to make sure that the proper verbiage is used. So, because the deafblind community, it just is always, very concerned about that. And Ben says, thank you, I will do that. And Jessica's answering. Any more questions? Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jess. The last item on the agenda, phrase word for the interpreting community. Stephen had led the discussion and why he wanted to put it on the discussion on the agenda. Stephen can do this. Thank you, Jessica and Jess, for accepting my proposal. I have noticed many interpreters using interpreting for from the forehead. I'm 75 years old. I used tactile interpreting for 51 years in a variety of situations. As from the time I was 24, I was native signer. Then I moved to Utah from out of state, from Washington state, and I noticed for the deaf and hard of hearing, I really don't like it. We are the Department of Services, their own services, and I noticed the division of services to the blind and visually impaired. They don't use the word for. So I was kind of, working. I never used, why did they use the word for? Did anybody propose it? Did it get vetoed? I worked with them professionally, and I thought it came to mind, maybe I'm a team, they're a team, and as a team, maybe you're not interpreting for, you're interpreting with. So maybe we can change the word of consumer in interpreting services. We can't help. You are born, you become deaf and blind. I'm here to interpret for you. I feel like that's looking down at me. And I don't feel then a bond with the interpreter, maybe interpreting with me. We are equals. I help an interpreter. I give feedback. The interpreter assists me, and learning what I need for communication. You know, we work together in our community, in our culture. We are a team. So maybe we can think about, it's time to think about not using the word interpreting for you. Jessica says, thank you. I have a question. What would you like us as the board to do with this information? My suggested idea, I feel strongly that the board can suggest, maybe the board can contact interpreter training programs, you know, to not use the I am interpreting for the person. I don't know how it starts, but it's an idea. You know, I'm interpreting for you. So any comments from the board? Anybody have any thoughts on this issue? I'm turning it over to any comments from community. Jen Harvey. So I have to change it says to unmute. So Stephen, I'm not sure if there's an answer, but I'm not sure if the board can control how people talk. We can spread the word, but I have some thoughts. I'm wondering if you've had this discussion with other deaf people. I can see your perspective, and if you feel like the general deaf community feels this way. Another possible meaning of interpreting with also has a negative context. So I'm interpreting with you today. It means you have to do some of the interpreting also. You know, I'm interpreting some, you're interpreting some. So I know that your intent is positive. We are working together, you know, but as an interpreter, it could be in a negative context. You know, I can sign English and then you have to figure it out in ASL. So it can have a lot of different meanings. So what is your intent? Do you think I should show or write to people's opinion, or give a presentation and get other people's opinion? How do I start the ball rolling? Well, Jen is saying, you know, there's a newspaper column that, you know, people put their thoughts, you know, letter to the editor or something, where people put out a thoughts, maybe social media or something like that, where you start a discussion where people share their perspective, their ideas. That starts disseminating information, but I don't know if the board is the right place. There are different approaches you can make to talk with people about that thought, the interpreting community, the deaf community, and get their perspectives on that. Well, not only written, but signed in video. Some don't understand the English. You know, we have two modes of communication. Jen says, I agree with you, Stephen. Yep. we start, you know, my native language is ASL. So maybe if I write, then, you know, someone can edit it to make sure I write it correctly in written English. Jessica says, the one way that we have this discussion is I did find some language in the PPM. It says for the deaf and hard of hearing. So it's possible that we can use and look at the language and how it's written. So, but in the interpreting community, that's a small part of a bigger picture. You know, there's the spoken language. And so I'm wondering what phrase could be better used, you know, because you're talking about from German to Spanish, from English to Spanish, you know, I am here to interpret for you. If the Spanish language interpreter is spoken language and they are saying, and they interrupt, you know, I am here to interpret for both of you, or I am here to interpret with you. So Jen says, I'm already spotlighted, so I'll go first, Jess. Number one, you know, Stephen, you commented earlier about the hearing of visually impaired and following rule and law and the language there first. So they should use the same language. So if it's in the law, one phrase, it has to stay that way. The law has to change before the PPM. My here is to be neutral, you know. I say I'm interpreting for this appointment today. I am here as the sign language interpreter, because if it's a different spoken language, if it's a written approach, you know, maybe Jess can comment on that, because there are different options and different language that we can use, like Stephen said, you know, is it abuse of power? You know, it's clear, written language has clear meaning of a neutral phrase is, I'm here to interpret today. It's more professional. You know, Jess, do you have a comment on this? Well, I think this is a good discussion in our profession in general. You know, it's steeped in history. The national organization, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, that's still what it is. They still have this conversation regularly. I think it's a good conversation for us to have as well. Can we solve the problem? No. But can we be an example how to better use language? You know, can I magically change it? I will take it from a spoken language interpreter. They typically use language. I am the Spanish English interpreter, German English, whatever, you know. They use the language pair, and I am the ASL English interpreter. I don't need to say for, and that's what works for me. I am and I use my hands and I sign the word speak, and that's good for me. There's better ways, we are always evolving. What we knew 20 years ago is definitely different than what we know now. So thank you, Stephen, for bringing up this conversation. And I hope all people in this meeting and many community members I see, they will go, that was a good point of conversation, and maybe take it in and, how we label themselves. Jessica says, thank you for the interpreter's perspective and reminding us the rules of law. And after that, it's harder to change things than we think. Paul, this reminded me of being a freelance interpreter. And I remember going out and saying to the hearing person, I'm here to interpret for you, because the doctor has the obligation. I'm here to interpret for you. And it was a good opportunity to remind them that it's not interpreting for the deaf person, but when I'm interpreting for the doctor or such, they're the hearing person. They're the ones that don't understand the language. Any comments from board members? Jessica asks. I think David. I was thinking on that. Both language, I am the ASL English interpreter at Salt Lake Community College, ASL English. So the interpreters, you just say, I like that. You don't have to hash out history. I do agree with I get it. I get that it's a good starting discussion point, of what situation is best. Jessica says, thank you. And Jen says, Stephen, I'm talking to you, Stephen. Okay. The other good place to start your discussion or your article is UTRID, for the community interpreters, not just the deaf community, but interpreters in the field in general. So that's another thought. Jessica says, thank you. Okay, Stephen.
Let's go ahead and switch interpreters now.
Okay.
Okay, I do like this discussion. I think this has been great. I think I would like to see both the clients and the interpreters working together comfortably. I don't want to see any kind of resilience there. Just making sure that they get along. But I can say personally, I am not an interpreter. I don't know the work of interpreting, but I do utilize interpreters, and I share those ideas with interpreters often. And I just think there are other ideas. Again, those are not pros or cons. They're just ideas. There's no negativity assigned to them. But I want to just kind of share my ideas with other interpreters and the deaf community to make a positive influence. I just feel like it is time for this to happen. That's why I wanted to share my thoughts with you all. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. Do we have any other comments? Okay. Jason, were there any actionable items that we needed to put down for today? Okay, all right. Thank you. For our next meeting, that will be held on December 6th, 3 to 5 again, again through Zoom. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, board members, for sacrificing your time and your mental energy to come to this meeting. We appreciate all of the hard work that you do as a board. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Let's see. Hold on. Stephen's got something to say. Let's go ahead and Stephen. Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead, Stephen. I apologize for interrupting again. I had forgotten to mention that I did get some information and some directions. I will actually send you 2 different emails that I got because I'm not exactly sure what either of these documents are, but I would like to send that to the group for these 2 different documents. So, and what the purpose for those in working together would be. I said, okay, thank you very much. That would be great, Stephen. Go ahead and do that. Do we? It looks like Stephen might still be talking. Do we need to spotlight Stephen again? Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. It looks like we don't need to. So we can go ahead and wrap up. Can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? So David says, let's adjourn the meeting. Who's seconding that? Oh, Ben seconds that. All right, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.